Polish is a West Slavic language spoken primarily in Poland and the native language of the Poles. It belongs to the Lechitic subgroup of West Slavic languages. Polish is the official language of Poland, but it is also used throughout the world by Polish minorities in other countries. It is one of the official languages of the European Union. Its written standard is the Polish alphabet, which has 9 additions to the letters of the basic Latin script. Polish is closely related to Kashubian, Lower Sorbian, Upper Sorbian, Czech and Slovak, although the Austrian, German and Russian administrations exerted much pressure on the Polish nation following the partitions of Poland, which resulted in attempts to suppress the Polish language. A rich literature has regardless developed over the centuries, and the language currently has the largest number of speakers of the West Slavic group. It is also the second most widely spoken Slavic language, after Russian and just ahead of Ukrainian. In history, Polish is known to be an important language both diplomatically and academically in Central and Eastern Europe. Today, Polish is spoken by over 38.5 million people as the first language in Poland. It is also spoken as a second language in western parts of Belarus, Lithuania and Ukraine, as well as northern parts of the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Because of the emigration from Poland during different time periods, most notably after World War II, millions of Polish speakers can be found in countries such as Australia, Brazil, Canada, the United Kingdom and the United States. There are 55 million Polish language speakers around the world. History: Polish began to emerge as a distinct language around the 10th century. The process largely triggered by the establishment and development of the Polish state. Mieszko, the first ruler of the Polands tribe from Greater Poland region, united a few culturally and linguistically related tribes from the basins of the Vistula and Oder before eventually accepting baptism in 966. With Christianity, Poland also adopted the Latin alphabet, which made it possible to write down Polish, until then existing only as a spoken language. It is worth mentioning, writes Thomas Kamysler, that Polish is the oldest non-ecclesiastical written Slavic language with a continuous tradition of literacy and official use, which has lasted unbroken from the 16th century to this day. The precursor to modern Polish is the Old Polish language. Ultimately, Polish is thought to descend from the unattested Proto-Slavic language. Polish was a lingua franca from 1500 to 1700 in small parts of Central and large portions of Eastern Europe, because of the political, cultural, scientific and military influence of the former Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Geographic distribution: Poland is the most linguistically homogeneous European country. Nearly 97% of Poland's citizens declare Polish as the first language. Elsewhere, Poles constitute large minorities in Lithuania, Belarus, and Ukraine. Polish is the most widely used minority language in Lithuania's Vilnius County, having been part of Poland from 1922 until 1939, and is found elsewhere in southeastern Lithuania. In Ukraine it is most common in western Lviv and Volyn oblasts, while in West Belarus it is used by the significant Polish minority, especially in the Brest and Grodno regions and in areas along the Lithuanian border. There are significant numbers of Polish speakers among Polish immigrants and the descendants in many other countries. In the United States, Polish Americans number more than 11 million, but most of them cannot speak Polish fluently. According to the 2000 United States Census, 667,414 Americans of age 5 years and over reported Polish as the language spoken at home, which is about 1.4% of people who speak languages other than English, 0.25% of the U.S. population, and 6% of the Polish-American population. The largest concentrations of Polish speakers reported in the census were found in 3 states, Illinois, New York, and New Jersey. Enough people in these areas speak Polish that PNC Financial Services offer services available in Polish at all of the cash machines in addition to English and Spanish. According to the 2011 census, there are now over 500,000 people in England and Wales who consider Polish to be their main language. In Canada, there is a significant Polish-Canadian population. There are 242,885 speakers of Polish according to the 2006 census, with a particular concentration in Toronto and Montreal. The geographical distribution of the Polish language was greatly affected by the territorial changes of Poland immediately after World War II and Polish population transfers. Poles settled in the recovered territories in the west and north, which had previously been mostly German-speaking. Some Poles remained in the previously Polish-ruled territories in the east that were annexed by the USSR, resulting in the present-day Polish-speaking minorities in Lithuania, Belarus, and Ukraine. Although many Poles were expelled or emigrated from those areas to areas within Poland's new borders. Meanwhile, the flight and expulsion of Germans, as well as the expulsion of Ukrainians and Operation Vistula, the 1947 forced resettlement of Ukrainian minorities to the recovered territories in the west of the country, contributed to the country's linguistic homogeneity. Dialects. The Polish language became far more homogeneous in the second half of the 20th century, in part due to the mass migration of several million Polish citizens from the eastern to the western part of the country after the Soviet annexation of the Krusy in 1939, and the acquisition of former German territory after World War II. This tendency toward homogeneity also stems from the vertically integrated nature of the authoritarian Polish People's Republic. The inhabitants of different regions of Poland still speak Standard Polish somewhat differently, although the differences between regional dialects appear slight. First, language speakers of Polish have no trouble understanding each other, and non-native speakers may have difficulty distinguishing regional variations. Polish is normally described as consisting of 4 or 5 main dialects: Greater Polish, spoken in the west; Lesser Polish, spoken in the south and southeast; Masovian, spoken throughout the central and eastern parts of the country; Silesian, spoken in the southwest; Kashubian, spoken in Pomerania west of Gdansk on the Baltic Sea, is often considered a 5th dialect. It contains a number of features not found elsewhere in Poland, e.g. 9 distinct oral vowels and phonemic word stress, an archaic feature preserved from Common Slavic times and not found anywhere else among the West Slavic languages. However, it lacks most of the linguistic and social determinants of languagehood. Many linguistic sources about the Slavic languages describe Silesian as a dialect of Polish. However, many Silesians consider themselves a separate ethnicity and have been advocating for the recognition of a Silesian language. According to the last official census in Poland in 2011, over 500,000 people declared Silesian as the native language. Many sociolinguistic sources assume that extralinguistic criteria decide whether something is a language or a dialect of the language, uses of speech and political decisions, and this is dynamic. Also, language organizations like USIL International and resources for the academic field of linguistics like as Ethnologue, Linguist.List and other, for example Ministry of Administration and Digitization recognized Silesian language. In July 2007, the Silesian language was recognized by an ISO, was attributed an ISO code of SZL. Some more characteristic but less widespread regional dialects include the distinctive dialect of the Gorals occurs in the mountainous area bordering the Czech Republic and Slovakia. The Gorals take great pride in their culture and the dialect. It exhibits some cultural influences from the Vlach Shepherds who migrated from Wallachia in the 14th–17th centuries. The language of the coextensive East Slavic people, the Lemkos, which demonstrates significant lexical and grammatical commonality with the Goralski dialect and Ukrainian, bears no significant Vlach or other Romanian influences. Some urban Poles find this very distinct dialect difficult to understand. The Poznański dialect, spoken in Poznan and to some extent in the whole region of the former Prussian annexation, with characteristic high-tone melody and notable influence of the German language. In the northern and western regions where Poles from the territories annexed by the Soviet Union resettled after World War II, the older generation speaks a dialect of Polish characteristic of the Krusy that resembles Ukrainian or Russian, especially in the longer pronunciation of vowels. Poles living in Lithuania, in Belarus, and in the northeast of Poland continue to speak the eastern borderlands dialect, which sounds slushed and is easily distinguishable. Some city dwellers, especially the less affluent population, had their own distinctive dialects, for example, the Warsaw dialect, still spoken by some of the population of Prague on the eastern bank of the Vistula. However, these city dialects are now mostly extinct due to assimilation with Standard Polish. Many Poles living in emigrant communities, whose families left Poland just after World War II, retain a number of minor features of Polish vocabulary as spoken in the first half of the 20th century that now sound archaic, however, to contemporary visitors from Poland. Phonology. Polish has 6 oral vowels and 2 nasal vowels. The oral vowels are I, A, and U. The nasal vowels are T and. The Polish consonant system shows more complexity. Its characteristic features include the series of affricate and palatal consonants that resulted from 4 Proto-Slavic palatalizations and 2 further palatalizations that took place in Polish and Belarusian. The full set of consonants, together with the most common spellings, can be presented as follows: stops P, B, T, D, K, and the palatalized forms K and fricatives F, V, per second, Z, the alveolo-palatals C and Z and X, affricates T, S, DZ, TS, DZ, TC, DZ. Nasals per meter NN, approximates L, J, with trill R. Neutralization occurs between voiced-voiceless consonant pairs in certain environments, at the end of words, and in certain consonant clusters. For details, see voicing and devoicing in the article on Polish phonology. Most Polish words are paroxytones, although there are exceptions. Orthography. The Polish alphabet derives from the Latin script, but includes certain additional letters formed using diacritics. The Polish alphabet was one of 3 major forms of Latin-based orthography developed for Slavic languages, the others being Czech orthography and Croatian orthography, the latter being a 19th-century invention trying to make a compromise between the first 2. Kashubian uses a Polish-based system, Slovak uses a Czech-based system, and Slovene follows the Croatian one. The Sorbian languages blend the Polish and the Czech ones. The diacritics used in the Polish alphabet are the kreska in the letter C, N, O, S, Z and through the letter in L, the kropka in the letter Z, and the ogonek in the letter Z, E. The letters Q, V, X are often not considered part of the Polish alphabet. They are used only in foreign words and names. Polish orthography is largely phonemic. There is a consistent correspondence between letters and phonemes. The letters of the alphabet and the normal phonemic values are listed in the following table. The following digraphs and trigraphs are used. Voiced consonant letters frequently come to represent voiceless sounds. This occurs at the end of words and in certain clusters, due to the neutralization mentioned in the phonology section above. Occasionally also voiceless consonant letters can represent voiced sounds in clusters. The spelling rule for the palatal sounds C, Z, T, C, D, Z, and N is as follows. Before the vowel I, the plain letters S, Z, C, D, Z, N are used. Before other vowels the combinations C, 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 I, D, Z, I, N are used. When not followed by a vowel the diacritic forms S, Z, C, D, Z, N are used. For example, the S in Siwe, the C in Shaka and the S in Swati all represent the sound C. The exceptions to the above rule are certain loanwords from Latin, Italian, French, Russian or English, where S before I is pronounced as S, e.g. sinus, sinologia, doremia, fa sol la si do, St. Simon I, St. Simon Ishi, Sieriosa, Siergia, Singapore, Singil. In other loanwords the vowel I is changed to I, e.g. Syria, Sibir, Synchronizikia, Syracuse. The following table shows the correspondence between the sounds and spelling. Digraphs and trigraphs are used. Similar principles apply to K, X, and L, except that these can only occur before vowels, so the spellings are K, G, H, L before Y, and G, G, Hi, Li otherwise. Most Polish speakers, however, do not consider palatalization of K, G, H or L as creating new sounds, except in the cases mentioned above. The letter I, if followed by another vowel in the same word, usually represents J, yet a palatalization of the previous consonant is always assumed. The letters A and E, when followed by plosives and affricates, represent an oral vowel followed by a nasal consonant, rather than a nasal vowel. For example, A in Dab is pronounced M, and E in Texa is pronounced N. When followed by L or L, E is pronounced as just E. When E is at the end of the word it is often pronounced as just. Note that, depending on the word, the phoneme X can be spelt H or CH, the phoneme Z can be spelt Z or RZ, and U can be spelt U or O. In several cases it determines the meaning, for example, Mos and Mors. In occasional words, letters that normally form a digraph are pronounced separately. For example, RZ represents RZ, not Z, in words like Zamarzak and in the name Tarzan. Notice the doubled letters represent separate occurrences of the sound in question. For example, Anna is pronounced Anna in Polish. There are certain clusters where a written consonant would not be pronounced. For example, the L in the words Mogul and Jabłko might be omitted in ordinary speech, leading to the pronunciations Muk and Jabłko or Jabłko. Grammar. Polish is a highly inflected language, with relatively free word order, although the dominant arrangement is subject-verb-object. There are no articles, and subject pronouns are often dropped. Nouns may belong to three genders: masculine, feminine and neuter. A distinction is also made between animate and inanimate masculine nouns in the singular, and between masculine personal and non-masculine personal nouns in the plural. There are 7 cases: nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, instrumental, locative and vocative. Adjectives agree with nouns in terms of gender, case and number. Attributive adjectives most commonly precede the noun, although in certain cases, especially in fixed phrases, the noun may come first. Most short adjectives and the derived adverbs form comparatives and superlatives by inflection. Verbs are of imperfective or perfective aspect, often occurring in pairs. Imperfective verbs have a present tense, past tense, compound future tense, subjunctive, conditional, imperatives, and infinitive. Present participle, present gerund and past participle. Perfective verbs have a simple future tense, past tense, subjunctive, conditional, imperatives, infinitive, present gerund and past participle. Conjugated verb forms agree with the subject in terms of person, number, and gender. Passive-type constructions can be made using the auxiliary byc as or stack with the passive participle. There is also an impersonal construction where the active verb is used with no subject, but with the reflexive pronouns "e" present to indicate a general, unspecified subject. A similar sentence type in the past tense uses the passive participle with the ending "o", as in Widziano Ludzi. As in other Slavic languages, there are also subjectless sentences formed using such words as można together with an infinitive. Yes/no questions are formed by placing the word cy at the start. Negation uses the word nie before the verb or other item being negated. Nie is still added before the verb even if the sentence also contains other negatives such as nigdy or nick, effectively creating a double negative. Cardinal numbers have a complex system of inflection and agreement. Numbers higher than 5 govern the genitive case rather than the nominative or accusative. Special forms of numbers are used with certain classes of noun, which include deco and exclusively plural nouns such as drzwi. Borrowed words. Polish has, over the centuries, borrowed a number of words from other languages. When borrowing, pronunciation was adapted to Polish phonemes and spelling was altered to match Polish orthography. In addition, word endings are liberally applied to almost any word to produce verbs, nouns, adjectives, as well as adding the appropriate endings for cases of nouns, adjectives, diminutives, augmentatives, etc. Depending on the historical period, borrowing has proceeded from various languages. Notable influences have been Latin, Czech, Italian, French, German, Hungarian and Turkish. Currently, English words are the most common imports to Polish. The Latin language, for a very long time the only official language of the Polish state, has had a great influence on Polish. Many Polish words were direct borrowings from Latin. Latin was known to a larger or smaller degree by most of the numerous Szlachta in the 16th to 18th centuries. Apart from dozens of loan words, its influence can also be seen in a number of verbatim Latin phrases in Polish literature. During the 12th and 13th centuries, Mongolian words were brought to the Polish language during wars with the armies of Genghis Khan and his descendants e.g. Dazida and Syriac. Words from Czech, an important influence during the 10th and 14th, 15th centuries include Same, Hanba and Brahma. In 1518, the Polish king Sigismund I the Old married Bona Sforza, the niece of the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian, who introduced Italian cuisine to Poland, especially vegetables. Hence, words from Italian include pomodoro from pomodoro, cauliflower from cavolfiore, and pomeranza, a portmanteau from Italian pomo plus arancio. A later word of Italian origin is autostrada. In the 18th century, with the rising prominence of France in Europe, French supplanted Latin as an important source of words. Some French borrowings also date from the Napoleonic era, when the Poles were enthusiastic supporters of Napoleon. Examples include Dekrin, Abisur, Rekin, Mebel, Bagaz, Walska, Fotel, Plaza and Cosma. Some place names have also been adapted from French, such as the Warsaw borough of Olibors, as well as the town of Iredau. Many words were borrowed from the German language from the sizable German population in Polish cities during medieval times. German words found in the Polish language are often connected with trade, the building industry, civic rights and city life. Some words were assimilated verbatim, for example handle and dak. Others are pronounced the same, but differ in writing schnur, snur. As a result of being neighbors with Germany, Polish has many German expressions which have become literally translated. Interestingly, the regional dialects of Upper Silesia and Mashuria have noticeably more German loanwords than other dialects. The contacts with Ottoman Turkey in the 17th century brought many new words, some of them still in use, such as jai, sazlik, filazanka, arbuz, diwan, etc. For the founding of the Kingdom of Poland in 1025 through the early years of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth created in 1569, Poland was the most tolerant country of Jews in Europe. Known as Paradisus Iudiorum, it became a shelter for persecuted and expelled European Jewish communities and the home to the world's largest Jewish community of the time. As a result, many Polish words come from Yiddish, spoken by the large Polish Jewish population that existed until the Holocaust. Borrowed Yiddish words include Barkor, Bajzel, Belfer, Siushi, Symes, Jezeft, Kittel, Makloka, Mamona, Meniel, Mysigene, Pinda, Plajta, Rijwak, Esedmal, and Treni. The mountain dialects of the Goral in southern Poland have quite a number of words borrowed from Hungarian and Romanian as a result of historical contacts with Hungarian-dominated Slovakia and Wallachian herders who traveled north along the Carpathians. Thieves' slang includes such words as imak of Greek origin, considered then unknown to the outside world. Direct borrowings from Russian are extremely rare, in spite of long periods of dependence on Tsarist Russia and the Soviet Union, and are limited to a few internationalisms, such as Sputnik and Perestroika. Russian personal names are transcribed into Polish likewise. Thus Tchaikovsky's name is spelled Pyotr Ilyich Zarkovsky. Recent loanwords come primarily from the English language, mainly those that have Latin Greek roots, for example computer, korupkia, etc. Slang sometimes borrows and alters common English words, e.g., lunak, concatenation of parts of words, which is not native to Polish but common in English, for example, is also sometimes used. When borrowing English words, Polish often changes the spelling. For example, Latin suffix -to corresponds to cjea. To make the word plural, cja becomes cje. Examples of this include inaugurakia, dewaistikia, receptia, konobakia, and konatakia. Also, the digraph qu becomes kw. Loanwords from Polish. The Polish language has influenced others. Particular influences appear in other Slavic languages and in German, due to the proximity and shared borders. Examples of loanwords include German Grenz, Dutch and Afrikaans Grenz from Polish Granica, German Pitska from Polish Piskos, German Zobel, French Zibeline, Swedish Sabel, and English Sable from Polish Sobel and Ogonek. The word describes describing a diacritic sign added below some letters in various alphabets. Said Marta, a Polish Ruthenian word for mop or rag, became part of Yiddish. Quite a few culinary loanwords exist in German and in other languages, some of which describe distinctive features of Polish cuisine. These include German and English quark from twaróg, and German Gurk, English gherkin from ogóre. The word pierogi has spread internationally, as well as punchki and kielbasa. As far as pierogi are concerned, the original Polish word is already in plural, yet it is commonly used with the English plural ending s in Canada and United States of America, pierogies, thus making it a double plural. From English chips being already plural in the original, yet it has obtained the Polish plural ending y. The word spruce entered the English language from the Polish name of prusy. It became spruce because in Polish zprus sounded like spruce in English and was a generic term for commodities brought to England by Hanseatic merchants, and because the tree was believed to have come from Polish ducal Prussia.